Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Hugh Freeze and Auburn get it done in the transfer portal, landing Payton Thorne, the former quarterback at Michigan State. This is a really big land, and just from the pure aspect of getting some competition and some quality arms in that quarterback room, not many coaches I trust more to develop quarterback play than a guy like Hugh Freeze. We've had a blast talking Auburn football, entering into the Hugh Freeze era. So before we get into it again, just want to say thank you to you guys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We checked out Auburn spring game a couple weeks ago. Appreciate all the support the Auburn fans have shown the fellas. We, again, just can't thank you guys enough. So subscribe. If you do enjoy it, Dill, I'm going to kick this one off to you. How we feeling about Payton Thorne heading to Auburn?
So I had a hunch, or it seemed pretty much inevitable that Auburn was going to get one of these guys, Thorne
Yes.
and Thompson. And in a sense, I think some people maybe thought Casey Thompson was the more talented guy, had looked better at times as a college quarterback. But I don't know. From what I'm reading, it seems like that second year of eligibility that Payton Thorne had was a huge decider. And frankly, in an offense that kind of is decent around him, especially with the running game and offensive line, Payton Thorne was pretty good at Michigan State. When that offense was weak and the O-line was weak and they didn't have a rushing attack, he wasn't great. And that was obviously a 2022 year. But in the Hugh Freeze offense, with the offensive line and running backs they have coming, I think this is not a bad landing spot for Payton Thorne, and he can thrive in that.
Yeah, a couple of things I would know is you hit the nail right on the head. Payton Thorne, when he's been successful, you look at the 2021 year, threw for 3,200 yards, 27 touchdowns. He had a very good running with Kenneth Walker. He had a good offensive line, and he looked to be a very good quarterback at the Power 5 level. And even last year, 19 touchdowns, 2,600 yards. Like, those are still solid numbers. And you look at the transfer portal and look at the quality arms that were in there. Like, Payton Thorne was at the top of the list just because of the starting experience. It's really hard to find quarterbacks returning to school that have thrown for 6,500 yards and almost 50 touchdowns in their career. Payton Thorne checks both those boxes.
And that's just what Auburn needs. They just need a guy who's going to make the throws when they need them made. And as much as Payton Thorne's not really a playmaker or a guy who's going to put an offense on his shoulders, he is very dependable in big moments. Like you saw when Michigan State was able to rattle off in 22, they won those games. I get they were close and whatever, people like team of destiny kind of talk, but they did win those games. He made the throws he needed to make, and Auburn really hasn't had that, it seems like, in a couple of years now.
Yeah, and you noted a really good point with the eligibility, because I do think I don't think a lot of Auburn fans are saying we're going to go out and win an SEC title with Payton Thorne year one. I think he's a really good stopgap, though, in terms of a quality potential starter, and I expect it to be quarterback competition with Robbie Ashford. We'll talk a little bit about that. But the future's with Walker White. Like the kid out of the 2024 class who has all the traits in the world. Auburn went hard after him, was able to land him. That 2024 class looks to be really good. Payton Thorne's a guy that could start this year, could start next year while Walker White is a freshman. And then it's the Walker White show as you head into that 2024 class. So I think that the eligibility probably did play a factor in terms of the quarterback projections over the next couple seasons.
And especially the way teams are turning themselves around so quickly and in what Hugh Freeze can bring to the table as a guy who I have a hunch is going to go out and start getting a lot of talent in the building and develop it really well, which is something also he's done in the past. So I think having the stability at that quarterback position immediately is part of the recipe in these quick turnarounds, like just having a guy you can trust. And Auburn really didn't have that before Payton Thorne.
And again, it's so rare. It's I mean, as much as Payton Thorne might not be, he's not going to be like a first round draft pick, although Hugh Freeze notably turning guys who are painfully average into being NFL draft picks. He did it with Malik Willis at Liberty. I do think that this Auburn team is kind of a little underrated. We put out our top 25 preseason rankings post spring. I wish Payton Thorne committed before we did that because it might have to update the rankings. We had a listener say, like, hey, don't sleep on Auburn. And they did a phenomenal job addressing the transfer portal. They're going to have a quarterback, at least who you can trust. Whether it's Robbie Ashford, whether it's Payton Thorne, you got to think that one of those two will emerge as the quarterback one. They're going to be able to run the football. You look at that newly made offensive line. Our biggest takeaway from watching that spring game is this Auburn team, although you have some question marks about the air raid or the passing game attack, like they're going to be able to run the football at a high level heading into 2023.
Yeah, and that's all Payton Thorne really needs. Again, if they didn't have much offense around them, especially on the rushing attack, you kind of are a little hesitant to think what Payton Thorne can be. But
Yes.
in the right system with the right ability to run the football, again, he's proven himself. So
And I wonder if that's why they also went after Payton Thorne over Casey Thompson, because our argument for Casey Thompson is we haven't really seen Casey Thompson with a good offensive line, with a good run game. But you guess what? You did see Payton Thorne with that, and he had a damn good season in 2021. And so I like this from multiple different ways. I do want to talk about the now impending quarterback competition, right? I mean, you add some depth, which you needed when TJ Finley left. Robbie Ashford, though, seemingly has the better skill set to run the Hugh Freeze offense. That being said, if he really does not develop the ability to push the ball down the throat and be somewhat of a threat through the air, I do think this is probably Payton Thorne's job to win. And I don't think he's transferring for his 5th and potentially 6th year if he's not thinking he's got a damn good shot at that quarterback once.
I mean, they're definitely going to let him compete. That's for sure. He's definitely not going to sit the bench. And I will say, if Robbie Ashford ends up winning that job, like that's not
you feel good.
You feel really good because you kind of know what Payton Thorne is. You're not really questioning. Again, not really a Heisman guy, but a guy you're pretty dependable. So if Robbie Ashford's able to prove that he's a dependable quarterback, in addition to the athletic traits and some of the upside you have with a guy of his talent level, again, that's not a bad spot you're in. So it's not really like a lose-lose situation or anything like that. If Robbie Ashford beats him out, that's probably good for Auburn.
Yeah, because like what you were looking at, if Auburn wasn't able to land a quarterback in this window of the portal, I mean, Robbie Ashford probably your quarterback 1. TJ Finley's out. Holden Garner is your quarterback 2 with not another scholarship quarterback on campus, I believe. I think you might have a true freshman who was kind of a late add in that 2023 class, but the quarterback room would have been looking not great, especially with Robbie Ashford, how he likes to use his legs. Like, I mean, knock on wood, never rooting for him to get hurt, but he's a guy that's going to take some hits because of how much he wants to be an athlete outside the pocket. This is a massive addition, not only as a potential starter, which I do think he'll win the job, but also just in terms of depth and competition at the most important spot on your football team.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, again, is he going to be Caleb Williams? Definitely not. But he's going to stabilize the room. I think it just will do a lot to like kind of help usher, again, what we've talked about with some of these other schools, including Florida, who now may be more up in the air than a team like Auburn in terms of their quarterback room. But to kind of bring along the team until the new coach's regime, in this case Walker White, kind of comes in and takes over and is the one who, if Auburn's going to take that next jump, it's going to be on Walker White's shoulders.
All right. So we've been talking a lot about this. Me and you just personally through text messages, Colin, like we've been talking a lot about this Auburn team and what they can do in 2023. A phenomenal job in the transfer portal. Noted the guys Dylan Wade, Avery Jones, Gunnar Brayton coming over on the offensive line. We know they're going to be able to run the football. They added some really good players on the defense side. You know that defense is going to be solid. Like if there's going to be a unit you have faith in, it is going to be that Auburn defense. Where do you think Auburn needs to go in order to kind of be a top 20, top 15 team in 2023 if you're looking for one more late add in the transfer portal? I got my opinions. Where are you thinking we're going here?
I mean, of course, it's wide out is the natural thought. And there's some good, in fairness, that's where
really good
guys are out there who are pretty good. And you have to think Auburn's a pretty attractive destination now that you don't have a ton of known competition in that room. And B, you have a coach and quarterback combo who you kind of believe in now, especially with Hugh Freeze. I mean, if I'm a wideout, I want to play with Hugh Freeze. He's obviously done a really good job moving the ball everywhere he's been. And now that you kind of have a quarterback you at least can trust at a baseline level with Payton Thorne, I think that, like, yeah, you're a Keon Coleman, his teammate at Michigan State. Now, I know I've obviously heard the rumblings that Keon Coleman is not Payton Thorne's biggest cheerleader. But, again, if you're looking at as a wideout in the portal, I really don't see this as a bad landing spot.
I think the wide receiver destination that Auburn has, it got a lot more attractive. Because the one question, you don't have a question mark about Robbie Ashford and how that run game is going to look for Auburn. Like, Robbie Ashford is going to help that run game with his ability to use his legs. If you're a wide receiver looking at potentially transferring into Auburn, your question mark is who's getting me the football. Like, Robbie Ashford is not a guy that's inspired a lot of confidence to move the football through the air. So you talk about some of the guys who are in the portal. Keon Coleman, you noted. You have Zachary Franklin, who I think is probably the best wide receiver coming out of UTSA, transferring back-to-back 1,000-yard receivers. This is the quarterback position wasn't necessarily the deepest in the transfer portal. Like, you really had only 2 guys that I think could be power.
Not in the spring window at all.
Yeah, Casey Thompson. Yeah, exactly. And Auburn kind of missed it in the winter. But you have Casey Thompson, Payton Thorne. You land Payton Thorne. And now I think you're looking at just to develop some playmakers on the outside for whoever it is, Robbie Ashford or Payton Thorne to use. It's a deep group. Like, I really do think there's some immediate impact guys in the transfer portal. You probably add Tyron Smith, the Texas A&M transfer as well. So I'm really excited to see if Auburn can just go out and land kind of a playmaker on the outside, because you know they're going to be able to run the football. Jaquez Hunter, I think, is one of the better running backs in the whole entire country. So Auburn team, I think, is trending in the right direction. They're getting a lot of traction in the 2024 class as well. So again, we're going to continue to monitor this Auburn roster. Heading into 2023, the Hugh Freeze era is beginning. It's a very exciting time. So again, if you do enjoy the content, it's going to be a busy next couple months for the Auburn Tigers. So we appreciate you guys checking us out, and we'll talk to y'all later.